Today I want to address a question that I've been asked before, which is how much a website should cost to build. Now, there's a lot of components to building a website. If you've never built a website before, it may just seem like everybody's getting one these days and they don't go through a lot of effort to do it. Well, the reality is most people do have some sort of a website. Every business, most nonprofits will go out and buy a website. But none of these sites are anything are producing very much for them. There's not a lot of planning that goes into them. There's not a lot of expertise that goes into them. For many organizations, building a website is kind of like designing a business card. They're really just putting a brochure online, if you will. In many cases, they're going with some kind of free package or something that's very low cost that just allows them to pick a template or pick a design and put some information on it. And for the most part, that's what most organizations have if they have a website. Many of them are poorly designed, and many of them, even if they started looking good in the beginning, over time with different volunteers, different employees, the owners or organizational leaders themselves going in and kind of dinking around and messing around with the website and the tools, they've managed to really get the design off track, and so they look terrible. And I'm sure that you know many organizations that have terrible websites. This is why. So I want to talk about what it really costs to create a website the right way. Now, I want you to keep in mind that we don't charge anything close to this price, but I think it's important for you to understand what the actual price should be so that you understand how to really compare the price that we charge for doing a lot more than what the normal process entails. First of all, building a website is first about planning. It's about understanding what elements of the website you want to see in place, kind of planning it out almost the way that you would a catalog. So trying to figure out what pages you're going to have, what type of information you're going to have represented, and how to best index that and organize it. That includes, pulling together what type of content is needed, who has to write what, and what images you've got to find to go along with the text that you see on a website. There is a weird misunderstanding out there that people don't read on the internet. That's the only thing that they do is read. So you definitely need to write content. And a lot of times what we see is people trying to just put a bunch of pictures on pages, again, thinking that people don't read, that they just want to see a bunch of pictures. And that couldn't be further from the truth. Take the world's most popular website right now, Facebook, and all you do on Facebook is read statuses, read information. Sure, there's plenty of pictures and stuff to go along with it, but without the captions, without the information that goes along with it, Facebook really wouldn't be able to work. It would be Instagram, right? So let's talk about the next step, which is usually concepting. Once you've determined what you want to present, then it's about figuring out how you want this information to look. And so concepting is the next stage. Concepting is really important because of the fact that it sets the stage for the design process. It's what you give a designer in order for the designer to do their job. Now, a designer's not there to create the concept, although they may be part of the concepting process, but they're there to give life to the concept. So if you know that you wanted the home page organized a certain way, the designer's job is to bring some professional display, professional rendering of what your concept is. So we have sometimes customers that'll come in, they'll give us a very vague idea of what they want, and then we give them back kind of what they asked for, and they say that they expected more creativity. What they expected actually was more concepting, which is not actually the design stage. If you want concepting, you have to really invest in that process. Now, by the way, we're about minimum 15 hours into the actual process of building a website. We haven't even built a website yet, but planning takes anywhere between an hour to 10 hours, depending on how many people you have involved and how big the site is and what the purpose of the site is. Then you have another about 5 hours of concepting, trying to figure out how you want things to really look, where you want things to go, and how you want to apply a united kind of template to the process. The next stage is the actual design process. Now, usually this is done by mock-up. You first mock it up, you try to kind of create what the website's going to look like when it's created so that everyone involved can look at the design and determine whether things have to be changed. Now at this stage, we don't have a functional website yet. We're just looking at it graphically. We're looking at again, a mock-up, kind of an example of what it's going to look like. Now, there are some folks that look at a mock-up and say, well, I've got to really see it working to really know whether this is going to work for me or not. And I think that's fair enough, but it's important to understand that that's an additional investment. We now have to mock something up. We have to put it now into a design or actually publish it to the web, and then if there are any changes we made, we have to go back to that mock-up stage to get it right before we can publish it again. So you really want to get the mock-up stage right. You want to look at everything, really envision things working. Once you click on one button, how the next page is going to look. Usually the design stage takes some time here, and that'll be anywhere between 10 to 20 to 40 hours in order to really create everything that you need in the design stage. Then come the revision stages, where you look at the design, you look at something that's been created, and then you revise it in iterations. So you might look at the home page and make some changes there. You might look at content pages and make some changes there. And so you'll continue making changes till you're happy with it. And finally, those pages get laid out. Finally, you start actually seeing the website published. It comes to life. Now, by this point, we are at a minimum of I'd say about 65, maybe 70 hours into the process of building just a medium-sized website. This might be a 10-page website, maybe 15 pages. Maybe with 5-page websites, you get away with a little less time. But we're still talking about a substantial amount of time. By this point, if you have a full-time person working on this, it's been about a week and a half since the beginning planning stages all the way now to the revision and content layout stages. Finally, there's another round of revisions. You got to go through the whole site. Now that it's all built, you got to go through, take a look at everything, make sure that it's working properly. Maybe some of the things that you envisioned working one way don't quite work the way you wanted to. Maybe the information isn't as cohesive as you wanted it to be. So you'll tweak and you'll change and you'll swap out pictures and you'll remove a paragraph of text, but whatever it takes to really make the site look great and tell people the message that you're trying to convey. And finally, at the end of that, you'll have a round of tweaking. Now everyone's got to look at it. Everyone's got to have their say. Maybe it's just you, but you'll want to tweak little things. Maybe you just didn't notice that graphic was a little bit too big, or maybe that it needs to be aligned to the left instead of the right. So again, you'll kind of go through that process. Now at minimum, we're talking about 115 hours of work that goes into building a website. Now, if you went to just hired a minimum wage person, let's just put them at $9 an hour. This is somebody who may be just out of school, which is what I hear a lot. Now, I don't recommend hiring someone just out of school to do your website, but I do acknowledge that sometimes happens to some organizations that we work with. So at $9 an hour, we're still looking at the website costing you about $1,035. Now, it's important to know that many of the sites that people come to us to build cost them substantially less to get the site built up front. But that's if you hired a minimum wage person to just work on this at $9 an hour, that's about where you'd be. Now, if you hired the design firm down the street, you're looking at a bill closer to about $17,250. That's an average $150 an hour charge for an agency to work on your site. So we're talking about $17,000 for the same product. Now, what's important to note about us in terms of pricing is that we fall in the agency quality of service in working with not just one minimum wage person, but you're working with multiple industry leaders, people who've been in this industry for 5, 10, 20 years. You're talking about dealing with a creative director who was the head web designer for DuPont. We're talking about project managers who have worked for Revlon, Walmart, Procter & Gamble. We're talking about an organization that supports you and continues to support you even after your volunteers are gone, even after the person who supposedly knew about websites is out of the picture. We'll still be here to serve you for many years to come, and we're the ones designing that initial site. There's a lot of power in having us design your site for you, and when we quote you a price, it really is based on very flat, standardized pricing. It's based on what it should take us, the time it should take us to build it, and if it takes longer, we bite the bullet on it. So you're guaranteed this lock-in price. You get the benefit of expertise, you get the benefit of consulting, you get the benefit of planning, you get the benefit of a project manager who will ensure that your project is working properly and they're communicating with our production staff and communicating your expectations to the production staff. So it's very important that you kind of know all those things. It's a big process to build a good website. Now, in many cases, what we need from our clients is we need your interaction. We need your participation, your active participation in building that website for you. At the very low end of our pricing, we expect you to take more of a leadership role and control of the process. We do the grunt work of the design work, the communication and layout for you. At the very high end, we do everything for you. You just tell us what you want, and we whip it up. We work on all those hours of design and concepting and layout and revision. So you kind of get to choose based on who you have on your team, what your organization looks like, what your budget looks like, which is very important. But in any rate, I wanted to just take a few moments to describe what the process normally looks like and how much it should cost. Now, if you have any questions, definitely get to our website. We have a number of sites out there, and just ask us any of those questions. Communicate with us, call us by phone, send us a text, send out a carrier pigeon, whatever we can do to help. But take a look at the page information that we've put here, or the Facebook page that you're on, or the site that you're on. Call the phone number and ask any questions that you have. I look forward to working with you. If we aren't working with you yet, if we are working with you, hopefully this explains a little bit more about how the process normally works and what your investment goes towards.